Are you a company who's maybe hiring remote workers? Well, it's really important that you stay away from the scams. And I'm here with expert Bill Humbert, the recruiter guy. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Maddie. It's great to be here with you today.
It's always so great to have you. You always come with a wealth of knowledge and some great tips and tricks for companies to keep themselves safe.
Yes, thank you. So, recently there have been reports of North Korean IT remote workers stealing other people's identities and then applying for and being hired at companies. And then what happens is they steal either intellectual property from that company or they find, copy, and paste it and then threaten to put it out there for everybody to see. And they're asking for, not asking, demanding ransom money to prevent them from doing it. And a little secret, I know enough about human nature. Even if you pay them, there's no guarantee that they're not going to let that stuff loose to the public. Just saying.
Right. So you have to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe. Now, how are these workers falsifying their information, their names, and their backgrounds?
What they probably are doing is they could be finding people's resumes on job boards. So go in as an employer or potential employer and looking for people with the skills that they want to steal the identity. And then they got that person's resume, and now they go to LinkedIn or other sources and they try to make it appear that their North Korean worker, and it probably is happening in Russia also, um, is that person whose identity that they stole. So companies don't always run background investigations, nor today they rarely conduct reference checks. And I'm a big believer in the importance of reference checks, and I think that companies that don't conduct them really miss out. And by the way, the excuse is, but, but I've heard we can be sued if we do reference checks. Well, I got a news break for you. You can get sued for everything you do. You're going to stop doing everything? Come on.
Now, why do you think that so many companies are skipping the background checks?
It may be to save money. I don't, if I had a company and was hiring people, I would definitely conduct a background investigation because, what I have found is that the companies who skip them end up regretting it later because people end up having DUIs that they don't see or know about, and that can be indicative of a problem. They don't know about any legal issues that they've gotten in trouble for. So, it's really important. That's not money that you want to skip paying. You want to pay for that and make sure you get it right.
And how do you recommend that companies determine that someone might be using false information?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that you can do it without paying for it. And one is to look at the person's resume and then look on LinkedIn and see if that person shows up on LinkedIn with the exact same background. I also would require that person either interview on a video platform or in person. In person is preferable to the video platform. And then ask them if you can record the interview. And if they say no, then thank them for their time.
And then, of course, let's talk more about running reference checks and why it's so important for companies to do so.
Well, companies sometimes don't understand the importance of asking the right questions during reference checks. If human resources is doing the reference check, typically all they're looking for is dates of employment, title of the job, and Would you rehire this person? A true reference check goes into detail about that person's skills. So, you look at the resume and you see if it's a salesperson that they made 80% of quota. You ask the reference, so what percentage of quota did Maddie make when she was selling for you? And the answer comes up 50%. That's a problem.
Right.
It could also be ask questions like, what frustrates Maddie? Because that's important to know. If what frustrates Maddie is that she hates being micromanaged, and you know that that manager is a micromanager, that's not going to go well. So questions like that are all good and they're legal questions to ask. And you can still ask, if you had the opportunity, would you rehire that person? And sometimes they'd say yes, and sometimes they say, nah, I think we'd just pass on them this time.
Now, this has all been such great information, but since last time we spoke, you have some exciting news. Would you like to share it with everyone?
Oh, I'd love to. So we were on a 2-week Viking River cruise, and I talked to the program director about my 15,000 miles of hitchhiking from May of 1969 to May of 1971. And he goes, well, give me an example. And I said, well, Easter Sunday of 1969, I set a goal to hitchhike from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles in 5 days. And he said, did you make it? I said, yeah. And not only that, in 1970, I did a stretch goal from DC to Santa Barbara in 5 days. Did you make it? Yep. And then at the end of the summer semester, I set a goal to hitchhike from Santa Barbara back to DC in 5 days. Did you make it? Yep. And I said, proper goal setting is what enabled me to execute those hitchhiking plans and do it successfully. And I said, then you just take it into your personal life and into business, and that will help you drive more revenue for your business. And so he said, would you mind speaking to the passengers on the ship? And I said, love to. And so I was able to speak to the passengers, and they all loved my presentation, and they came up to me afterwards, and either right after I spoke or even at dinner, so we loved your talk. And there were times where they were laughing because I had one sign that I put up and it said detention center, and I said, would you hire somebody who was holding this sign? And somebody raised their hand, why'd you have a detention center sign? And I said it was a course. I was taking a counseling course, and I worked at a youth detention center. I didn't have a car, so I hitchhiked back and forth. And so they laughed about that. And then I told the story about how I got a ride with Manson's girls 2 days after they brutally murdered Sharon Tate and her friends. And then the hair stood up on the backs of their necks and their arms, and they got bumps. And so it was in retrospect it was scary, but at the time it seemed like it was normal stuff. So I'm writing a book on that too. That'll be fun. That'll come out next year.
Wow, so many great experiences you've had in your life, and it really shows that you know what you're doing when it comes to goal settings, intentions, and working towards that dream job. Now, if people are looking to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
It's very simple, Maddie. All you have to do is just go to RecruiterGuy.com, and you click on the red banner that says Contact Bill, and that'll put you into my calendar. Pick a time that works for you, and we can have a conversation. I love to talk. My passion is to help companies improve their recruiting process and actually transform it from recruiting to talent attraction.
Well, Bill, this has been so wonderful. There's been so much great information, so thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and always sharing all of your wonderful knowledge.
Thank you, Maddie. It's great to be here.
Make sure that you check out RecruiterGuy.com if you're in the market to maybe hire that perfect candidate or to become that perfect candidate. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we've got more of the show, so stay tuned.